Hello, my teacher friends. Welcome to episode 161 of the Beyond Measure podcast. My name is Christina Whitlock, and I just hang out here in your favorite podcasting app, ready to serve you up a dose of solidarity anytime you need one. This is an ad-free podcast. Whew, thanks to my supporters over in my Patreon community. If you find value in the work I do, I would encourage you to jump on over to christinawhitlock.com/Patreon and join that community for as little as $3. There are some great thank yous that await you over there as well, so thanks in advance for partnering with me on this show. And now, grab your favorite beverage and join me for an important truth that we all need to hear today. This is episode 161. Cheers to calling ego what it is. Before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to offer a quick reminder of a special opportunity that I am offering this week. On Tuesday, March 19th, I will be giving a special live online presentation of my most requested conference session. It's called the Varsity Musicians Playbook, and it's full of fresh perspectives and practical applications to help studio teachers tap into the magic of team sports. We all know how many students we lose to the travel volleyball team, right? The Varsity Musicians Playbook is all about strategies used by team sports to build commitment and enthusiasm. It's built on research and experience, and I believe the session holds something for everyone. So if you happen to be hearing this before the 19th of March, you can still jump in on the live session. If not, you can still catch the replay. Both of those options include printable downloads that are going to help you implement these ideas in your own studios. You will find a link to that session in today's show notes, or you can head to christinawhitlock.com/sports. Okay, so here is the deal. The last few episodes of this podcast have been focused on a lot of common teacher struggles. We've talked about frustrations over recital attendance, discouragement over that pesky notion of potential, and we've covered not worrying so much about what other teachers think of you. In each of those episodes, I feel like I've been dancing around something that just needs to be said. So here I am today saying it. Each of those things that I've been talking about, the recital attendance, the idea of not meeting your quote full potential, and struggling with trying to prove yourself to your community, those all come down to one thing, and it's your ego. Yuck, I know. It sounds so, I don't know, unattractive, right? But, my friends, we are going to journey through this truth together. Are you ready? In episode 98 of this podcast, I talked about what I called the secret reason we overschedule ourselves. Spoiler alert, the secret reason we overschedule ourselves is often related to our ego. We know that being a busy musician must mean that we have skills that people want. We know that being a busy teacher means there are lots of people who depend on us and who value us. So, in episode 98, I talked about leaving my adjunct university position ultimately because I realized that I was running myself ragged trying to live in too many different worlds, mostly because I liked having a university title. It wasn't the only reason, but once I got really honest with myself and I called it what it was, it made my decision to leave crystal clear. I want to make sure I say this up front, friends. Ego is not all bad. I do not think you are a self obsessed egomaniac. I promise. In fact, I know the teachers that rally around this podcast are far from that. Most of the time, I wish you would think more highly of yourself as a person. I count humility as one of my core values, and I hope that doesn't surprise you. But even when ego is not the primary driving force behind our motivations, we still need to keep it in check sometimes. And that's what we're talking about today. My hope is to help you shed some light on the places your ego might be driving you in a negative direction. I'm pretty confident we all have at least one area of our lives where we would benefit from naming ego for what it is. So let's start with those recent episodes, shall we? Last week, episode 160, we talked about frustrations over recital attendance. We found common ground in the fact that so many of us have that family, the one who never seems to prioritize studio events, right? Well, my question for you today is, why are we so bothered by their lack of attendance? Again, I hope you are just so proud and so confident in the benefits of your program that it pains you to know that someone is missing out. But I think we all know it's more than that sometimes. When I hear teachers complain about students backing out of performances, there's one little statement that is often buried in their grumbling. I often hear them say, "This is one of my most advanced students." And there it is, friends. Our ego gets hurt when we feel like we're not going to be recognized for teaching our best students. And before you think I'm throwing stones here, please know I have been there, felt that. For many years, one of my most advanced studio families, we're talking three siblings who I loved and who played so well, but for years they did not attend a single studio performance. It irked me. Truly, it did. Besides the fact that they were missing out on important experiences, I wanted credit for them, by golly. But guess what? They are all officially grown adults now, and all three still play music in different ways. And I don't know, they're just pretty great human beings. So I guess it all worked out, didn't it? What about that pesky idea of potential that we talked about in episode 159? As I pointed out, the idea of any of us reaching our fullest potential is a moving target, and it's pretty much never going to happen. So, why do we get wrapped up in this idea of potential? Well, I think some of the issue is our ego. When those exceptional students leave our studio, we lament their missed potential in part because we wanted to continue being part of their journey. We wanted to continue receiving credit for their growth and being part of it. We wanted to continue being a valued part of their family. So when they leave, regardless of the reason, we can't help but feel like we must just not be valued enough by them, which stings. It does. But again, I think we need to call that what it is, which is a blow to our ego. How about episode 158, where we talked about my advice for my younger teacher self? I confessed that my early 20s self used to worry so much about proving myself to other teachers that I missed opportunities to learn from my colleagues. I don't think I have to say anything else about that one because it's pretty obvious that that was definitely an ego driven situation. I was way too worried about establishing myself as someone with high standards and experience and education. All of those things were true. So don't get me wrong. I had reason to be proud of what I brought to the table. Again, this ego situation is not all bad, but I just don't want it to be a primary driving force in my life. So, the question, my dear teacher friend, is there an area of your life where your ego is driving a little more than you would like to admit? Think about what makes you feel insecure these days. That's a great place to start. Can you name an area of your life where you feel like an imposter lately? I'll give you a second to think about it. Now, consider if ego is a factor in that insecurity. It's not a bad thing if it is, just make sure it's not the main thing. Like, when was the last time you asked for feedback in that area of insecurity? Let's go back to that topic from episode 98. Let's say you are chronically overscheduling yourself, not because you necessarily need the money, but because you like knowing that people depend on you. Or maybe because you are harboring an addiction to busyness, which, for the record, has its own ego concerns. When was the last time you asked someone close to you, like your spouse or a best friend or a child, what they thought about your current workload? Research shows that when we actively seek feedback on an area that is prone to being fueled by ego, it helps us maintain a healthier balance of humility. So, if you find yourself overly concerned about what your students' recital performances say about your teaching, find someone whose opinion you can trust and ask them what they thought about the recital. Ask them if your love for your work is coming through. Now, don't ask someone who is just going to stroke your ego with kind words. That is not the point here. But seriously, if you feel like your ego is in the driver's seat and you want to kick it into the back seat instead, consider asking for feedback. Doing so is a great way to keep your humility in check. And lest you think this comes easily to me, let's just be clear. I am the absolute worst at asking for feedback. I am perpetually afraid that I'm going to hear something soul crushing, so I don't ask for it. Which kind of illustrates my point perfectly, right? The very fact that I don't like asking for feedback is because I'm afraid it will hurt my feelings, and that is kind of an ego driven issue in itself, right? Lesson learned: to keep your ego in check, humble yourself to ask for feedback. Whew. Okay, friends, that's what I have for you today. I want you to really think about what is causing you distress in this season of your life. Is it feeling a lack of respect? Is it feeling overwhelmed by too many commitments? I mean, it is springtime after all, prime time for music teacher madness. Is it a desperate need to prove yourself to others? I mean, what is it? Get real with yourself. And if ego is indeed part of the equation, don't think that eliminating ego is the answer, because it's not. But calling the ego for what it is can be very eye opening. Now, grab that beverage you've been sipping on and raise it to the sky. It's time for a toast. Studio music teacher friends from all around the world. Today, we make peace with the fact that even the most humble of people, like us, can still find themselves struggling with their ego. Much like I always say about performance anxiety, the goal is not to eliminate the feeling. That's often way beyond our control. However, the goal is to acknowledge the feeling. Like, hello, ego, I see you are joining me again today. And then make sure it's not your primary driving factor. Remembering that we are in this profession to serve others, to motivate ourselves by the victories our students experience, even when we don't get any credit for it, that's the stuff that is going to make our life worthwhile. And in the end, what could be better than that anyway? Cheers to you, my humility led teacher friends. Here, here. And speaking of humble teachers, it's time to celebrate our teacher friend of the week. This week's teacher friend of the week is my pal Kelly Estes. Kelly Estes is a pianist and a teacher in the Chicago area, and she is a boss. Kelly plays piano with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, so, she is the real deal when it comes to musicians. But she's also so clear on the kinds of students that she wants to work with. Kelly only teaches adult students, and she is great at it. As someone like me who struggles with the idea of niching down, because I just love all the stages of learning, I really admire Kelly for identifying the student profile that brings her the most joy and makes her feel like her best teacher self, and she sticks to it. I know we all need that reminder sometimes that not every student is a good fit for us, and that's perfectly okay. I joke with Kelly sometimes that I wish little kids could experience her brilliance, and I'm confident she would be a great teacher of young students. But just like I said last week, just because she could teach everyone doesn't mean she should, right? Ah, I'm so convicted by my own words. Congratulations, Kelly Estes, on being our teacher friend of the week. All right, friends, that's what I have for you today. Don't forget that online presentation I am hosting on Tuesday, March 19th, the Varsity Musicians Playbook. You can register for the live event or catch the replay and all the accompanying materials by heading to christinawhitlock.com/sports. Or just check out today's show notes for all things related to today's show. Onward and upward, my friends, to calling our ego what it is. Take care of yourselves, and we'll talk soon.